All right, here we go. First grade teachers. This is our first month. So I want to walk through this lesson plan format. And this video is going to be a little bit longer than the other months just because we're getting kind of familiar with the layout of everything. I'm going to make sure that you're comfortable with where everything is. Again, I'm Deedee Wills. Thanks for being here. Let's go ahead and get started. We're going to be talking about pictures telling a story. So when you first open up these units, you're going to go ahead and find a little welcome page. It's going to talk about the gist of this unit. So go ahead and take a look through there. I want to make sure that you're kind of comfortable with how this writing might be different than other things that you've done in your classroom. So first of all, we're going to really emphasize student choice. So students write about a topic of their own choosing. This is a challenge for students at the beginning of the year because they're not used to that. They're used to having a teacher tell them exactly what they're going to write about, or maybe responding to a prompt or something along those lines. That's a really valuable skill for students to have, but it's not what we're doing during this time. That might be responding to a science project that they're working on, or perhaps maybe a book that you've read together. But during our writing time, we're going to be wanting students to compose on their own, on a topic of their own choice. Many lessons are going to help you learn how to do that. The other thing I want to mention is the frequency. So we want to make sure students are writing every day in this capacity. Now, it may be that your schedule is one that doesn't allow you to have this chunk of time every day. So we want to make sure we have some nice size chunks, but perhaps maybe 1 or 2 days a week, your writing time can only be 10 minutes or 15 minutes or something along those lines. Just make sure that you bring that into your lessons every day. We want to make sure that we're learning from other writers. So we're not doing predictable sentences or anything like that. We're going to be looking at the work of other writers that have come before us. So published authors, a lot of modeled writing that you're going to be doing, as well as reading mentor texts to get some ideas. We want to make sure we set our expectations high. So we want to make sure that students are writing on a daily basis and they participate on a daily basis. They need to be actively engaged throughout this time. Now, this might be a challenge for some students who perhaps maybe are coming into first grade not used to doing that. That's okay. We're going to be building that skill over time. We also want to make sure that we're accepting approximations. So we might have some students who have a strong control over writing and spelling. They may have been very successful in kindergarten and coming in and have no problem sounding out words and spelling those, or putting those letters together to spell the words that they want to write. And you'll have some students who don't have that skill. So we want to accept the approximation. Some students might convey all of their meaning through illustrations, while other students might be using a combination of illustrations and words. So we're going to accept those and know that that's something that we're going to be working on and building over time. But we want to make sure students feel comfortable that a writer can also draw pictures and so convey their meaning through illustration. So we want to make sure that we are comfortable with that. Handwriting is absolutely an important skill. Handwriting fluency is absolutely important. We're not going to be focusing on handwriting during writer's workshop or writing time. We want to make sure that we have a time set aside to work on handwriting fluency, but during this period, we're going to be composing. And so when we're composing, we're thinking about the thoughts versus the letter formation. So that's actually activating in two different parts of the brain. So we want to make sure that we are comfortable knowing that perhaps the handwriting is not going to be perfect during this type of writing. But if we're working on that skill in another part of our day, it's all going to come together. Okay, what else do I want to tell you about this? I want to talk about the routines. So your mini lessons are about 10 minutes long. I want to make sure that they're very short. At the beginning of the year, they're going to be a lot shorter than that. They're going to be maybe like 5 or 6 minutes long because you're still building that ability for them to sit and listen and participate. And 10 minutes is a long time when you're little. So we'll build that mini lesson up to 10 minutes. At the beginning here, it might be 5 minutes long. You're just going to keep it really brief. The other thing is the next thing on this page is you're going to see something called status of the class. That is something that is phased out over time, but it is a really important thing for us to work on at the beginning of the year because we want to make sure students understand when they get up from that carpet, it is time for them to go work. So the way that it works is I hold on to everybody's writing folder. I've never let them keep it in the desk because it's like the black hole, right? So we don't let them keep it in their desk. I hold on to the writing folder. After my mini lesson, I ask students, so what are you going to write about? Hands start to go up. Allison, what are you going to write about? I'm going to write about what I'm going to, okay, great. Here's your writing folder. You may go get started. Allison gets up and goes to work. Then I ask another student and another student. And meanwhile, I'm handing out the folders and students are getting up to go work. If a student's there and doesn't know what they're going to write about, I just say, hey, listen to your friends, might give you an idea, and I continue to work. When we get to the end, there might still be a few of our friends sitting on the carpet. You can help guide them and remind them how writers get ideas, and hopefully that will spark them. I will give you some tips in the next video in Unit 2 on what to do for those students who dig their heels in. But for now, we want to make sure that students have something they're going to write about before they leave the carpet. What we don't want to have happen is for them to sit at their desk and then you notice they're doing like pencil Olympics or eraser wrestling. And we ask them, what are you working on, honey? And they say, oh, I don't know what I'm going to write about, because that will spread throughout your class. So before they leave the carpet, they are good to go. I typically got rid of that status of the class about week 6 or 7 of school. So it's not something that I had to keep long term. So you may also find that as well. After about the first 30 days, you might phase it out. You may need to bring it back in when you're starting to notice students are having a hard time being on topic or knowing what they're going to write about. Typically, if a student isn't sure what they're going to write about, having that status of class for if it's just a few students, you can work with that particular student versus having everybody stay on the carpet for that status of the class. So status of class is temporary. Phase it out when you no longer need it. Okay. Writing time. Students are going to write between 5 to 20 minutes. Beginning of the year, it's very short. We're going to be working on stamina. There is a stamina chart in the chart portion of the download. You're going to find that in the introduction. It's all in one file. So you're going to go ahead and document those stamina, and it's going to build over time. Typically what happens is it goes great. We start with day 1, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, and then all of a sudden we have a student who is, I'm done after 9 minutes. And so when that happens, we just bring everybody back. Usually that student gets a stink eye from other students, and that's the end of it. But it happens every single year that we go forward, we go back, and then we continue on. I had my class could write for 40 minutes, 45 minutes. They loved it. Obviously, we don't have that kind of time in the schedule, but go ahead and build up to 20 minutes if you can. You should be able to build up to that pretty quickly. Within the first 3 or 4 weeks of school, you're probably going to be up at 20 minutes. The other thing that I like to do is I like to put some background music, very soft instrumental music, no lyrics, so that I can help monitor the noise of the classroom. If it's very noisy and I can't hear that soft music, it means it's too noisy, and then we quiet students down. Instrumental music that I like is one that's not like one that has lyrics. So like, for example, you wouldn't want to like in the 80s, I'm going to date myself, they had something called Muzak, right? So it was just like the instrumental version, but there were lyrics that went along. You found yourself like singing in the elevator. People looked at you kind of strangely. We don't want to have that either, because students will start to sing along. So just something that's soft and that does not have lyrics that goes with it tends to help students focus more. What else do I want to say? I love to use a timer. A visual timer is great. There's lots that you can get off of on a computer. I had a big one that was not a digital one, but it really helps students to know kind of where we are. It helped me know where I was as far as within that independent writing time. Sharing time. We want to make sure students have time to share with their partner every single day. And then we're going to be talking a little bit more as we move on about how that sharing will change. I typically would have students that I confer with share that day. So we're going to talk about that. You can see all about how that works in the conferring folder or conferring module. That's in the introduction section. Make sure you check that out. Lots of great information. But for that first unit, our first four weeks of school, we are just going to have students come up and share. Okay. And there's going to be some information on sharing in the lesson. So it's going to walk you through what that looks like. The other thing I wanted to say about sharing is make sure you have your sharing partners. The beginning of the school year, you're going to randomly put them together. Oftentimes you don't know the students real well, so you don't know who's going to mesh well and who's not. But within about week 3 or 4, you're going to have more permanent sharing partners. And those tend to stay, for my classroom, stayed the same for the whole year. The way that I paired them is if I looked at my students who had the highest ability versus students who are maybe not as strong, and I made my list like this, and then I would pair them like this. It really helped me to make sure that I had students who could support each other versus these big gaps in ability. What else do I want to say about that? Yeah, give yourself about 3 or 4 weeks to get to know your students. You'll get to know who are a little bit more proficient than others, and that will help you get your lists figured out. Materials, we'll want to make sure that you'll have these materials, all of the anchor charts, the writing paper, all of that stuff is going to be in the introduction. Just one download versus having you download lots of little things for each unit. We just went ahead and consolidated and put them all in one download in the introduction. Mentored texts, these are books that are high quality texts that we want to make sure that we introduce to students. Now, here are some suggested ones. Does not mean that these are the only ones. These are just some books that have been around for a long time. Most people will have them or have ability to get them, but hopefully you're going to notice this. Once you start to use these books and you encounter other books, you're going to be like, oh, this would be a great book to use for this, or this would be a great book to use for that. And so you may find after year 1 that you don't want to use one of these books, you want to use a different one. Fabulous. But we just want to make sure you had a couple that you would be able to use as a mentor text. Now, you're not going to be reading these books from cover to cover during Writer's Workshop time. Make sure you've read them at another part of the day and then just flip to that page for that mini lesson. Otherwise, your mini lesson is going to be like 45 minutes long. Nobody has time for that. So you'll want to make sure that students already know the story and then just open up the page and say, hey, remember when we read this and the author did this? I want to try the same thing in my own writing. So something along those lines is really simple. And easy to do. Modeled writing, that is something that is so critical, and oftentimes I see this missed in other writing programs. So you're going to want to make sure that you do lots and lots of modeled writing in front of your students. We're not going to just tell students what to do, we're going to show them what it looks like. So that's how we're going to model. One thing that I think that a lot of teachers struggle with, myself included, is my drawing skills. Not so good. However, we're asking our students to draw with detail, we need to be able to draw with detail. So pick up some books on how to draw and get yourself really comfortable on how to draw things with body parts. No stick figures. Do not model with stick figures, or your students will do stick figures. So show them how to draw a person. You're going to see lots of examples in the units on how I draw people. Again, not going to win any awards for my illustrations, but you'll be able to see how to draw with detail. Another thing I want to mention is that when I model, I always draw with a black marker. So that's the lines are very clear, and I write with the marker, and then I color, right? And I do all of those things in front of my students. And so when your students are writing, please, please, please have them draw with a pencil. Write the words with a pencil and color with a crayon. Please, please, please do not let them draw with crayons. You cannot get details. Everything looks kind of jumbled. Please don't let them draw with crayons. I would really encourage you to have them think about drawing with lots and lots of detail, and that can be done with a pencil. Hard to do with crayons. Okay, so model with black ink for you, and then crayons, and students pencil, and then crayons. What else do I want to say? Sentences. So the sentence work that you're going to be doing at the beginning of these units are going to be very simple. And I've given you some examples, but there's an anchor chart in there that's going to talk about the structure of a sentence. Oftentimes students don't know how to write a whole sentence because they're not really sure of the parts. So we want to make sure we're modeling that on a daily basis. So we're going to be naming the who or what, and then did what. And then we're going to mark the sentence for punctuation. So the who in my sentence is I, and the what is have 2 dogs. Okay, so you're going to want to make sure when you're writing a sentence that you include several sentences that you can use that are going to model the who or what did what. So it could also be, my pen ran out of ink. The who or what, my pen ran out of ink. Okay, so we want to make sure that they are comfortable. Who or what did what. So mark those sentences and model, model, model. The other thing that's included in your units is writing goals and rubrics. Those are included in each unit, has a different rubric and a different writing goal chart. Now you're like, I don't want to be making a new chart every time. You don't need to do that. What I would suggest, and the information is here, is to go ahead and create the header. And I put that on regular anchor chart paper, and then I run it through a big laminator because it's going to last me like forever. Run it through a big laminator, and then the parts that are there that says I can write the whole time, or I can tell those, you can cut those out and just tape them on there if you want to. You may decide to laminate them so that when you pull them off, you can use them again the next year. Just make sure you mark on those what unit they came from. And the procedure for writing goals are there. Basically, I hand each student a Post-it note and ask them what goal are they going to want to work on. And they pop it onto the writing goal chart, and then they can move that as the month goes on. What I have found, now this is a kindergarten version, but it says it's from first grade, but it's really a kindergarten version. I found that students do a pretty good job of finding their own writing goal, but having them own it is such a helpful part of this process. Okay. What else do I want to say? We have alphabet charts and words you know. Those are in the anchor chart units as well at beginning of the introduction. So again, all in one download so that you don't have to keep going like, which unit was that in? What unit was that in? You can just find them. Okay. What else do I want to tell you? Here's a continuum. This is really helpful at the beginning of the year to kind of get a writing sample and see where students are. Where you're going to do that writing sample is just before you start the writing units. So up at the very top, it says pre-unit, get a pre-unit instruction or pre-instruction assessment. Just ask students to write. The directions are on this page, tells you what to do, and then just score that on the continuum. Very simple. Basically, we want to see what do they know coming in, and then that way you can judge progress. So grab that, score it, put it into their writing portfolio, and it'll be something that you can reflect on for the rest of the year. Also a great thing to show parents during parent-teacher conferences. This is the layout. So this is what you're going to be doing each day. Great way for you to kind of look ahead and figure out where those lessons are going to be. I will say that during the first month, the first unit, you probably want to stay to this schedule pretty closely. As you continue on becoming more proficient in writing instruction, you're going to find that you're going to want to move lessons around a little bit. You're going to be like, I have got to get this lesson in because my students really need it right now. So moving lessons around is what teachers do. That's what we should be doing. We should be modifying our lessons to meet the need of our classroom. So if you're deciding, you know what, I need to do day 10 and it's day 4, go ahead and move day 10 into day 4 and move 4 down to 10. So just make sure you get them all in. And a couple years from now, you're going to be really fluid with this process. But I find that this is a combination of working on conventions, craft, knowledge of genre. So you want to make sure you get to all of these things. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look and see what those lesson plans look like. This is that pre-assessment, not very exciting, tells you what to do. So what you're going to find in each of these lessons, the purple part is your mini lesson. It's going to tell you what to say, right? How to go about that lesson. Do you need to say every single word? No. It's scripted for those teachers who are like, I understand I need to teach this, but I have no idea what to say. So it's there. You will change this, make it yours. However, this will give you a great idea of the length of each mini lesson, and then how to word it in a way that's kid friendly. Try it out is where students now go ahead. We've done this mini lesson. Off you go. You're going to go ahead and write. Procedure check. We're doing a lot of those that first month because you know what? They don't know the procedures for writing time. So we're going to do lots of procedure checks. That's going to change as we continue on with the units. But keep an eye on those for that first month. And then, like I said, those will change as we continue within those units. You'll have like a little menu of things that notice, hey, I need to go back and teach this procedure or that procedure. Sharing time, just some great questions, ways to handle that. And then you'll see the anchor chart that could be used for that, and then the modeled writing. So I've included several different pictures in there to help you. For the modeled writing, again, not going to win any awards here for my illustrations, and I don't know why my head is so big in that particular picture, but you can see we're using body shapes for parts. We don't want to do stick figures. If you draw stick figures, here's what's going to happen. Your students are going to draw stick figures, right? And they're going to be done with their illustration like that. Now, this is not a very in-depth illustration because we're in unit 1. But as we continue on with these units, we're going to be really thinking about the moments within the pictures. We're going to be wanting to draw with a lot of detail so that when students are able to do the transcription part of it, they've already thought about their story in a lot of detail, all right? So that's why we do detailed illustrations. We want them to be thinking with a lot of detail and drawing with a lot of detail, because later on, when that transcription skills catch up, they've already have a well thought out story. Okay. Unit 1, we're going to be doing 1 piece per day, 1 writing piece per day. Unit 2, we'll start writing in books. We'll talk about that more later. What else do I want to tell you? I think that's pretty much it. Go through and look. Here's that sentence marking. Make sure that you are doing that. It will be very beneficial for your students. So if you're like, it's not a complete sentence, we want to make sure that we are modeling that on a continual basis. Okay. I think that pretty much concludes what we're going to be doing. I want to jump all the way to the end. Let me go ahead and scroll to the end. When we get to day 19, we're going to select 1 piece. We're going to be working on, just dropped my pen on the floor. We're going to be working on making that piece stronger. And then on the final day, we'll do a little celebration. That's going to be something that we're going to be doing for every single unit. We're going to take one to work on to make it stronger, to edit it, make some, add more to it perhaps, and then the rest of those pieces will go home. What I did, and it worked beautifully for me, is when we're on day 19, students go through their folders, select the 1 piece that they're going to use, then they bring the rest of their pieces to me, and they have to be in order, not numerical order, but they can't be upside down backwards, right? Then that make you crazy. They like hand you the wad. No, we don't want them handing you a wad of paper. We want them nice and neat. There is a parent letter that is in the rubric file. Go ahead and print that out. Attach that parent letter to that stack of work that they've been working on, and then go ahead and send it home. That letter explains all about what they've been working on. And so it'll also explain, how you teach spelling and why you're not helping them spell and all of those things. You want to make sure they know about that, because we don't want kids saying to their parents, I tried to ask Mrs. Wills and she said she wouldn't help me, right? So we're not going to spell for students. That letter explains why that is. So you'll send all of those other pieces home. You have one that you've decided, the students have decided they're going to use to edit. The next day, we're going to have a little celebration. And then I displayed those pieces in the classroom until we did our next publishing. Okay, so those are displayed in the classroom until we do our next publishing. When the next publishing happens, they take the ones that were displayed, they bring it to me, it goes into their writing portfolio, and we begin the process again. So that way you're collecting a piece of writing every 4 weeks. You can start to see some growth. You can see some changes. Hopefully you're seeing some very positive changes. That's part of the writing conference. You'll be noticing that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And you'll have some great samples. So by the time you're done with unit 1, you'll have the initial piece that you did, that pre-writing, and then you'll also have the piece on the wall, and then you'll continue to collect. All right, that concludes the very long how to do unit 1. I promise the next videos are going to be a lot shorter, just a lot to cover here. And I think that's it. Enjoy your first month of writing instruction.